we need to have a serious conversation about the Cybertruck. There are some mixed reactions. For example, Canaccord just released a stunning Tesla stock note. If you don't like Cybertruck, go find yourself a Rivian GFY. We came away still convinced that this vehicle will change the streets, excite some, but repulse others, as far as some speculation that Cybertruck will mirror tech failures like Google Glasses. Nah, think again. They say we think this car will sell, particularly relative to our estimates of 200,000 units in 2025 and 500,000 in 2027. The Tesla bears lied to us. They told us that the Cybertrucks are assembled by hand, but we now have evidence that that is not the case. And Jeff, after walking one of the Tesla Cybertruck production lines, can safely say that number one, it's mostly robots and no people pretty much on the production lines. He didn't see all operations, but he saw most of them. And number two, they are not hand-built, as some who have not seen the line claim. Tesla seems to have taken another step forward in automation again. Morgan Stanley thinks that Tesla will deliver only 30,000 Cybertrucks in 2024 and just 78,000 Cybertrucks in 2025. The 2025 number sounds really low to me. Sawyer agrees. Jeff calls these numbers very foolish. Dan Ives perceives the Cybertruck debut as a big moment for Tesla, and he retains his $310 Tesla stock price target. The Cybertruck delivery event was mostly underwhelming yesterday, and it was really short. I expected it to be a bit longer, although there was one very exciting moment with the 911. And the Cybertruck has so many great features, but they were just not mentioned. Right after the event finished, I was quite disappointed because we didn't hear anything about pricing or the range. But then I went to Tesla's website and I saw the range, 340 miles for the dual motor. And I didn't see the range extender at first. So I was feeling sort of not great, but not bad. And then I saw the range extender and then I was pretty happy. Steven posted some facts here. He says that less than 1% of all of the trips in the US are between 100 and 250 miles, and only less than 0.1% are over 500 miles. However, I believe these statistics take into account any kind of vehicle, whether it's a sedan, an SUV, or a pickup truck. And while pickup trucks are fairly popular in the US, there are many more non-pickup trucks in the US than pickup trucks, and therefore if we looked at the averages just for pickup trucks, I think the numbers would be a little bit different, because one reason why many buy a pickup truck is because they think, oh, one day I'm going to tow something, one day I'm going to carry something heavy, so therefore I'm buying a pickup truck, and if it cannot do pickup truck-like things, I'm not interested. For example, you need to tow something once a year, 300 miles, and if you're a pickup truck, officially only has 300 miles of range, you know, okay, once I start towing something, it's gonna drop by a lot, so there's no way I'll be able to actually get to my destination without stopping for a supercharger. Even though the destination is, let's say, just under 250 miles away, and sure, let's say that happens less than in 1% of all drives, but I almost never go on road trips. But when I do, I want to be able to quickly and easily charge my electric vehicle. If there were no superchargers that were easy to use, if it was difficult to charge my vehicle, I would not buy an EV, even though I almost never take road trips, but I want to be able to take road trips. But if you can put a bigger battery in your Cybertruck at any time and then easily remove it when you don't need it, yeah, I think that's a fairly decent idea, because then you are not carrying all that heavy extra weight the whole time, which makes your vehicle drive a little bit better, makes it a little bit faster. The range extender, though, does take about a third of the bed, so it does take quite a bit of space, but you still got plenty of space. So if you are towing something, you are probably not really using the bed anyway, so I think it's fine. I am wondering, though, how easy or difficult it is to get the extra battery into the bed of the Cybertruck. It's probably fairly heavy. And is it something that you can do at home with a help of one friend, or is it something that you will actually need to go to a Tesla service center to do because maybe it's a bit difficult? If you can do it by yourself with the help of one friend, then I think this is really good. But if not, then it's a bit disappointing. The rumor is that the extra battery will cost about $16,000, so not exactly cheap. But if you keep adding extra batteries to the Cybertruck, beyond a certain level, you really start hitting diminishing returns. So I think Tesla, for now, is making the right decision doing what it's going to do. That rumor of $16,000 comes from source code that is hidden within Tesla's website. So I think it's pretty credible.
If we do know this, and I just don't know it, please correct me. Do we know what it costs to make it? Are they going to be able to sell it profitably even for $99,999 or $61,000 or whichever version you get? Because if not, then we're just talking about a novelty item.
Well, at the current production level, no, they're going to be losing probably $40,000 on each vehicle.
$40,000 on each vehicle, probably?
Yeah, at the current scale, I mean, it's once they start to get above 10,000, then that's going to start to drop. But right now, they're basically hand making these cars right now. But eventually, at next year, that's going to ramp. And I think that it is the next 2 years. It's a sideshow. But I want to emphasize, Dan said something that's really important. Is that I think that, I've been waiting for this for 4 years. I was disappointed today in the price. I have a reservation. I don't know if I'm going to get it. I think I'm probably going to wait a couple years for the price to come down to get it. So I was disappointed, but I think that disappointment kind of misses the bigger picture. And I just want to emphasize what Dan said, is that this is about a company that is embracing EVs 100%, just like BYD. And at the same time, you're seeing GM backing off. They're in a catch-22. And I think it's more about this company just continuing to build its brand as electrification. And I think that we're going to see these buyers of EVs return in the next 5 years. And the rest of big auto is basically going to be off sides trying to catch up.
The thing is, we don't know for sure exactly what the margins are going to be for the Cybertruck. And it doesn't really matter at all what the pricing of the Cybertruck is. The only thing that matters is what the margins are going to be. So that's where all of my focus will be when it comes to the Cybertruck. Obviously, Tesla is not going to make any money in the beginning, but later, with scale, if Tesla can make significant profits, that will be all that matters. I understand that many reservation holders are going to be upset when looking at the current price of the Cybertruck. However, Tesla can easily drop the prices later. So it's only about what is the margin actually going to be. And James is often critical of Tesla, but with the Cybertruck, he's saying this is the world's best truck, best performance, plus technology, plus features, durability, ruggedness, cool factor per dollar. Yes, the price, of course, is quite a bit higher than expected for many. I get it, says James, but after taking inflation into account and subtracting the $7,500 credit, it's not that much more. Also, products should be priced per the market, and the current market prices are really high. Supply and demand for the Cybertruck is pretty good when looking at the demand, because Tesla has many reservations, officially over 1 million. Many will drop off, I think, after seeing the price, but the number of reservations is still very high. The product is worth it for the value it brings and relative to its peers in the market. Like, are you gonna get F-150 or the Cybertruck? No one is really buying the F-150. The team delivers, says James, and I agree. Now they need to deliver on production, which also means profit margins. Gary missed that Cybertruck pricing is a bit higher than he thought, so I assume he will probably drop his delivery estimate by a little bit. However, in the US, the average price of a full-size pickup truck is $66,000. After the $7,500 tax credit, the Cybertruck is $72,500. And in many ways, it's definitely better than an average pickup truck. So I think relative to the market, it's priced fairly well, given that it has some really nice features like steer-by-wire and rear wheel steering. And from multiple people, I am hearing how quiet it is inside the Cybertruck when driving, so it does seem like it is more of a luxury vehicle. A day before the delivery event, Troy guessed that the Cybertruck is going to have only 291 miles of range for the dual motor, but instead it is 340 miles. And I thought, looking at that 291 mile number, I thought that doesn't really make much sense. And if you watch my video before the delivery event, I said I would not be happy with under 300 miles. But if you looked at all of the facts, Troy made a very compelling case for why it should be less than 300 miles. I thought no. When I was an amateur in business, I made a mistake relying on facts and numbers way too much because I'm a math guy. But the truth is, oftentimes, if you can just think, and if your conclusion, your logical conclusion is telling you something different from what the numbers are, if you thought really carefully and really well, you are probably right. My personal experience usually is, if I find something that's super counterintuitive about the data that I'm working with, but my anecdotal experiences are telling me that data is not correct at all, it's completely wrong, usually there's something wrong with the data. Not always, but usually. And this is a perfect example of that. For example, the drag coefficient turned out to be 0.335 instead of 0.39, which does make a big difference. And for a very similar reason also, a lot of these Wall Street analysts, they just never fully understand and get Tesla because they look at their spreadsheet and their numbers are telling them Tesla stock is a bad investment. And yet they fail to realize that they have been terribly wrong, catastrophically wrong, and yet they are not changing their mind about Tesla. And just to be really clear, Troy is doing a really great job. He only presents facts. He doesn't really present his opinion, for which I highly respect him. But then you need to take these facts and you need to think about these. And then you come to your own conclusion. Rivian's drag coefficient is a little bit better, which is important for an electric vehicle. But this is a pickup truck that we are talking about. And if you are using it as a work truck, then you want the thing to be rugged and you want the thing to not get damaged easily. And the Cybertruck is far better for this task. Also, it has steer-by-wire, which is a huge deal. So the only reason why you would not go with the Cybertruck and go with the Rivian is, I think, if you just don't like how the Cybertruck looks, but that's actually a selling point for many. Anyway, a big shout out goes to James for predicting that there's zero chance that Tesla would list the dual motor Cybertruck for under 300 miles. Also shout out to multiple people that said they will eat worms if the Cybertruck is listed under 300 miles, the dual motor one. I think some of the disappointment about the Cybertruck is not about, relatively speaking, how good it is as a truck compared to everything else on the market. It has to do really only with what Tesla promised us, and the range was supposed to be a lot higher, 500 plus miles of range for $70,000, even when you adjust for inflation. Yeah, it's still not $100,000 for 340 miles of range. This is making markets just flat out say Tesla Cybertruck is notably the first time that Tesla is straight up not delivering on some of the key specs they promised. Tesla and others have taken the stance that the thousands of pounds of extra battery required to deliver 500 miles of range with today's battery technology is not worth the hit to driving dynamics. At this point, I can't be surprised if Roadster 2.0 has nowhere near 600 miles of range either. But remember how so many people were outraged when Tesla started delivering Model 3s and they were nowhere close to $35,000? Well, in China, you can basically buy a Model 3 for about that much. The refresh got slightly more expensive, but I assume the price will come down in the next 1 to 2 years, certainly, and possibly much sooner than that. So in the end, Tesla certainly delivered. And I believe Tesla eventually will deliver on the Cybertruck original specs as well. But in the meantime, there's going to be some outrage. Ross certainly does not mind complaining about Tesla, but he's not complaining about the Cybertruck at all. He just says it's a great day for Tesla. The future is now. They will sell all the Cybertrucks they make for years to come. And it seems to me that Ross is actually getting a Cybertruck, but he's also still getting a Rivian. That's a bit weird, I would say. Or maybe if you need to get a truck right now, then I guess it makes sense. But if you are willing to wait, then getting a Rivian over the Cybertruck, unless you don't like how Cybertruck looks, that just seems a little silly and a little stupid. But if you don't like the looks of a Cybertruck, I totally get it. With the Cybertruck, by the way, you can now charge your other Teslas. It's not really an important feature, but it's a feature that will come in really handy when you need it. You will be able to power your home with the Cybertruck, but to do that, you will need to have a Powerwall. If you don't have a Powerwall, it will not work. But there is a workaround. You just need to get really long extension cords, and as you can see here, there are a few sockets. So you just plug directly into here, and then you can use a few items in your home. And the Cybertruck battery is actually pretty big, so it will be able to power your devices for a very long time. For example, central ACs use a lot of power, but if you just plug it directly into the Cybertruck, you would be able to use it for a little bit more than 2 days non-stop. Tesla is running a promotion. It is offering Cybertruck reservation holders the opportunity to buy a new Tesla vehicle and get $1,000 off their new order if you order Model S, S, 3 or a Y. I think that's a pretty good tactic because some people are going to cancel their Cybertruck reservations, but now at least they are more likely to buy another Tesla. Here's a fairly decent comparison between Rivian and F-150 as well as the Cybertruck. He configured all of these trucks with features that he actually wants and that he thinks are important, and the Cybertruck is a clear winner. And he doesn't even mention the steer-by-wire, which I think is such a huge deal. If you watch the reviews, it's a huge deal. The biggest downside of the Cybertruck is that you don't have a spare tire under the bed. You need to buy it yourself, and then you sort of tie it up in the bed. Tesla is offering a better warranty for the Cybertruck than for the Model Y. You get extra 30,000 miles for battery and the drive unit. It is now confirmed that the Cybertruck does have a washer for the front camera. The button is right here. You simply click that button and then bam, it washes itself. I have one small concern about the Cybertruck's crash test. Overall, it seems really good to me, but pay attention to this part right here and how it crumbles. I think overall it's okay, but I would expect an electric vehicle to keep crumbling a little bit further, but the Cybertruck has this special design that probably makes it quite difficult, and it has that support frame and it doesn't really crumble past a certain point, which I understand, but I'm just worried, will that still give the Cybertruck a perfect 5-star rating? If not, then okay, but if it does still get a 5-star rating, then I'm really happy about it. It is not something to worry about if you crash into another vehicle because you will just always win, but if you just crash into a tree, that's something to think about. James has an interesting theory. I think Elon talking up how costly Cybertruck is to build on the Q3 2023 earnings call was just a cover for the higher than promised but perfectly reasonable new prices. Relatively speaking to other pickup trucks, I believe costs are being overstated and they will collapse much faster than Tesla wants to admit. And because Cybertruck volume will be low for a while, this will be masked in the financials until at some point it will not be. Tell me honestly, does this look better or this? This just looks so old now after looking at the Cybertruck. The Cybertruck event actually could have gone really badly, but luckily this person that wanted to shoot up the event and murder people, literally, was arrested and charged with terroristic threats. GM's top finance executive acknowledged earlier this week that the company's current EV lineup is operating at a financial loss. He said that maybe things will turn around by the second half of next year. Good luck. I thought yesterday that bringing that ball and throwing it at the Cybertruck was a bit of a gimmick because it was not a stainless steel ball, but respect to Tesla for bringing this to the market. Wall Street's best, Colin Rush, was just on TV to talk about the Cybertruck. Let's take a listen.
I think Phil's take on this is generally in line with our view. So first, the company really needs to evolve the product portfolio. They've established a very strong foothold in the vehicle market, and to grow further here, we really think they need to evolve the product portfolio. So totally in agreement with that. I think there was some nice technology validation in this vehicle, from the torque and some of the powertrain elements, as well as the steering capacity with the by-wire being integrated. That's not necessarily new technology, but having it integrated really helps enable some of the autonomous applications down the line. And I think that the company's at a crossroads here. It's disrupted the industry, forced the industry to move towards a certain technology node, and now driving that incremental share towards something that we think investors are anticipating is something on the order of 15 to 20% market share. next year really is going to involve an awful lot of hard work. And that's why we're on the sidelines here, that this is going to be harder for longer than I think a lot of folks expect. And we're expecting margins and growth to be a little bit muted here over the next couple of years.
A few key points about Colin. While Colin is a very good analyst overall, he is still wrong 49% of the time, but when he is right big time. Last year, Colin changed his Tesla stock rating from buy to hold when Tesla stock reached $141 per share. You would have been so much better off buying more Tesla stock, especially in December, like I have done, as you can see here, and then every single month after that, pretty much, instead of just listening to what Colin was saying about Tesla. So harder for longer is not guaranteed.
You know, and against, of course, this backdrop, at least, of what seems to be slowing demand or growth, certainly, for EVs. You know, the other day, Andrew Sorkin, of course, talked to Elon. Didn't really, I mean, I'm not sure it was necessarily asked and answered, but it didn't really get answered, certainly. This question is whether there is a significant slowdown. Do you believe there is, in terms of just what's left of the population wanting EVs?
So I think there's a misconception here. Growth in both China and Europe has actually been quite strong for EVs, and there's a strong North American bias for a lot of investors and a lot of the reporting here. And I think the U.S. market certainly has a product market fit issue that the OEMs are working through. And so the slower growth in EVs in the U.S. is not a huge surprise given, you know, where the appetite and the interest and real needs for consumers are in this country. You know, so EVs, we're not, you know, backing away from our bullish growth perspective. We just think it's coming from different geographies. Now, the redesign and kind of evolution of product portfolio is going to take some time. You know, that we're kind of on Gen 2 plus in terms of the vehicles that are on the road. And I really think Gen 3, when you go through a disruptive cycle, is really where products get right with the markets and really start driving volume. And I think we're in process on those Gen 3 vehicles here.
Understood. But I mean, again, you know, back to overall worldwide demand, you point out Europe, that's a lot of the Chinese EVs, if I'm not mistaken. And then in China, Musk himself has said it is an incredibly competitive market, is it not?
I think both those points are well taken here, and that's part of our concerns around margin. Like, Tesla continues to be a real technology leader and driving cost out of these vehicles from a design and a manufacturing perspective. But this is going to be a very competitive market, and it's going to be a challenging ROI market. And so we have some real concerns around some of the legacy OEMs. And Tesla, we think, is a long-term winner here, but the path to long-term winning in this market is going to be painful, and we're seeing that in the financial results.
Every single segment that Tesla competes in, it is clearly a big winner. So when Tesla comes out with the next generation vehicle, a lot of these companies are going to seriously freak out. In the meantime, I will just buy more Tesla stock. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you haven't yet.